What's up, everybody? This is Steve Strelacci, and today we are comparing the ToneX to the Quad Cortex. Is the Quad Cortex gonna die since this pedal came out? So if you are new to the channel, I have tons of videos about the Quad Cortex, Helix, Fractal, all your direct guitar solution needs. So if it's your first time here, consider subscribing and checking out some of the other content if you are somebody that's looking to go direct and use some of these new digital solutions. What I wanted to compare today is the new ToneX box. I'm going to be using the ToneX a lot, doing a lot of content on it. So if you are a ToneX user, also consider subscribing and checking out a lot of the other stuff that I have coming out for this. So if you've seen any of my videos, you know that I have a Quad Cortex. I love the Quad Cortex, but there's a lot of issues that prevent me from making it my #1 gigging choice. And there's a bunch of different things where it's a little bit frustrating to use. The gigging experience isn't great on the Quad Cortex currently. They're a little bit behind on updates, and it's just, I want to love it, but I can't. And pretty much all I use it for right now is a capture box with basic effects. And I like using my real pedal board alongside it so I can make my adjustments and my tweaks as I go. And the ToneX kind of fills in that void really, really well. So the ToneX comes in a package, obviously much smaller, not a ton smaller, but the Quad Cortex is a pretty good size. And just looking at the two side by side size-wise, the Quad Cortex is a bit bigger, but obviously it does a ton more. The Quad Cortex is considered an all-in-one unit, so it can literally do everything from effects, tune, got different in and outs, got effects loops, it's got everything. It's a great all-in-one solution, where the ToneX is meant to just be your amp sounds on your pedal board. So if you're somebody that wants to have real amp sounds along with your regular pedal board, prior to this ToneX box, there was no other real option for you that's pedal board friendly. I mean, there's other ones like the Iridiums and the UA stuff, but those are single amps or the Iridium is the 3 amps. You can't customize and make your own presets or buy presets from, people that make the presets professionally. So the ToneX is definitely a very unique thing, and the price is ridiculous. It's only $399, and the Quad Cortex is $1850 at Sweetwater. I have links to both of these below if you want to check those out. Those affiliate links give me a kickback. You know that whole spiel. So if you want to buy one of these, check them out below. But the price difference is crazy. For $399, getting an actual professional capture box that you could just put on your pedal board is pretty ridiculous. And if you're somebody that's really only using the Quad Cortex as basic core amp sounds and you still want to use your real pedal board, it might be a decent idea to jump ship and go for the cheaper option. That's also, it's got a lot more simplicity to it that I enjoy. When you're gigging with the Quad Cortex, there's plenty of issues when you're gigging because everything is reliant on that one screen. And if you have to make an adjustment on the fly, you have to kind of menu dive a little bit versus the ToneX where everything is just right there. So if you have to tweak amp settings or tweak a volume, it's on the actual unit, so you can get to things really easy. It even has dual function knobs where you can press and hold and get to the alternative side. And a downside where there's a plus for the Quad Cortex is that the display on the Quad Cortex is obviously much better. The touchscreen is great. It's really not a great comparison to compare both. So we're mainly focusing on the captures and the basic functions. Obviously, the Quad Cortex is a much more advanced unit, and it's obviously a much more high-end unit. But for what the ToneX does, I want to see if the Quad Cortex, if it can hang with the Quad Cortex within the boundaries of the ToneX pedal, if that makes sense. So what I've done here today is I have a Samson era matchless DC30 behind me here. Very expensive amp. These things go for like over, it's crazy, the prices. These are collectible, coveted, very popular studio amps and one of the best amplifiers of all time. So I mic'd it up with a 57 and a Royer 121 ribbon mic. So I send those mics into my Warm Audio mic pre's and really did this the right way. I went into the DAW, blended the mics perfectly the way I want them, and then I sent identical captures into each box so that I can compare them and see what they sound like. So I'm going pedal board, splitting that out into each capture box, just right into my interface. No post-processing, none of that stuff. So for my monitoring situation, I'm using these Audio-Technica M50Xs. I'll have links to all this stuff below. I'm going to be using my Gibson Les Paul Classic. This is a 1992. And let's get after it. And here is my matchless DC30. Now switch over to the Quad Cortex. Back to the capture. Quad. I'm just going to click back and forth. If you hear a click, then we're switching. So doing this, and I think this is also a fault of the Quad Cortex capture process, the capture process of the ToneX stuff is way more in detail and tells you exactly where your levels should be, and it'll tell you like you're in a good spot or you're not in a good spot. With the Quad Cortex, when you're making captures, you're kind of guessing, and there's no real, it's basically all opinions. People suggest different things. They say, oh yeah, it should be about here. Yeah, just go with that. And I think that affects the captures in a negative way. I sent my input and my output signals are identical on both of these. I went into a separate DAW, got the sends perfect, matched everything up. And you could hear the Quad Cortex has a little bit more of it's like a 4K bite that I don't like. And I do find that most of the captures that I play or come across have that little bit of a high-endness that I don't prefer. And I think the ToneX is a little bit warmer, and it's tough to totally put your finger on this, because I'm sure over YouTube, if you can even hear a difference, I'm not saying I have any special ear or anything, but sometimes you can't tell. The high end might sound better now, but I think amplified through a PA system, you don't want that extra high end, in my opinion. So I think that the ToneX sounds a bit warmer and a bit more realistic, in my opinion, just off the bat. And I think this could just be remedied very quickly by, just pulling out a little bit of the treble in the Quad Cortex capture. But let me know what you think of these back and forth here. Let's go to the middle position and see what we sound like here. This is the ToneX. Quad. And there's also another weird thing where I don't think, again, this is like for the input gain, when you make a capture on the Quad Cortex, I don't think it's consistent with the input of your preset. So when you set your input gain during a capture, I think that also has a negative effect on the overall capture. Like right now I have my input level at 0, and I think I have a little bit less gain. I mean, maybe it's really close. It's really close, but I'm also there's that weird uncertainty of how much input gain and how much output gain do you need to have, or how much input gain versus how much return gain you need in the Quad Cortex. The ToneX capture process, I think, is much more well thought out. And the biggest thing is that with the ToneX stuff, you're able to do it all on your desktop or on your computer. The Quad Cortex is still missing that desktop editor. I think for making your captures, having a better visual where it's up in front of you versus having to look down on the floor. And then to name it, you have to pick it up off the floor, type in the name, put it back down. And when you check your references, you have to check the foot switch and stuff. The ToneX is just on your desktop and you can just click back and forth. The ToneX even has a cool feature where they have all these pre-recorded guitar loops. So there's all different styles and stuff where it's playing actual parts, and you can have that loop into your capture when you're making it to listen. It's really hard to play and listen at the same time. So like even now when I'm going back and forth, because I'm physically playing, it's like, am I hearing a difference? Or am I not hearing a difference? Am I playing right? Am I playing wrong? But when you can actually just let a loop play, and you can just, when you're dialing in your capture, just do it that way, it makes the process a lot easier. So I think that's another plus for the ToneX as far as the capture process goes. That's really nice to have. And now I'll also go back one for the Quad Cortex, where to make a capture with the ToneX, you need external hardware. So you either need the capture box that they sell for $250, or You could use your interface, like if you have an AXIO, I have an AXIO that I just happen to have as my interface. Anything that has a reamp box or a reamp feature, you'll be able to make captures with. But the Quad Cortex doesn't have any limitation on that. You could just make all of your captures right there in the box. But even with $399 plus $250 for the capture box, you're still less than half the price of the Quad Cortex if you're just after those amp captures. And again, to clarify, we are just talking about amp sounds and how it's going to take pedals. Obviously, all in one unit versus not all in one unit. Yes, I get it. You don't need to go crazy in the comments. So let's see how these are going to take pedals. So far, we are on the ToneX, and now let's hit my old Nobles ODR1. So I'm kind of letting those muddy chords ring out because am I hearing this or is it just me? Are you at home hearing that there's a little bit more refined string separation in the ToneX? So this is the Quad. I don't know. I could play games with myself all day long, but it sounds good to me. I mean, they both sound great. It's really hard to tell them apart. It's weird. Sometimes I feel like I hear that little extra high end. The Nobles definitely helps because it's that fatter, a lot of low end being added. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I hear a difference. Sometimes I don't. I think right now with the pedal on, can I tell much of a difference? I'm just going to click around blind here. I mean, I don't know. Could you hear me switching back and forth there? I really couldn't tell playing single notes with the more distorted Noble sound. Let's now try hitting this with the Lex. So this is the Strymon Lex, and no distortion, no overdrive. We're going to start off on the ToneX. So my final conclusion on this is that I think that the captures are perfectly as capable as one another. Now, the debate for you as a consumer, if you're going to be buying one of these, you have to consider, do you already have a great pedal board that you love, that you don't want to sacrifice? Then the ToneX is capable of your great amp captures, just as capable as the Quad Cortex. If you're somebody that is really moving into being full-time, want to travel easy and not have any amplifiers on stage, you want all-in-one solution in one box, you want to consider the Quad Cortex. I do think that this should propel the people of Neural to really crank out some of these updates. I get that it takes a long time, and I get that there's programming, but when now you have this kind of up your butt that's just as capable as doing the capture thing, I think it's time to step it up, and we really need to start separating, because an $1,850 device shouldn't compete with a $399 device. In my opinion, I'm glad that the ToneX is so affordable and so accessible to so many players, so I really think that that's a great thing about the ToneX. But I think to separate itself, the Quad Cortex really needs to step up its game as far as the updates, getting the desktop editor, refining that capture process, just the stuff that I can compare between the two. That overall, I don't have, I know I bring up issues about these things, but I'm not complaining about either. I think that they're different things for different people, and hopefully this helped you make a decision on which one is going to be which. I love using my real pedal board when I'm home and when I'm in studios. Working off the home board is great for me. When I'm touring, I want the all-in-one box where I don't have to worry about anything. It's going to be consistent throughout night after night. I don't know if the Quad Cortex will do that for me, but I believe that if I was going to go all-in-one, it would be that versus taking my real board with this on it. So not having to worry about cables going bad or anything on the road, then obviously you want to go with the all-in-one solution. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. I almost just dropped my guitar. Let me know your thoughts in the comments on this comparison, going amp to amp comparison, going for it that way. I can also do one with some reverbs in the ToneX versus the reverbs in the Quad Cortex. I think the Quad Cortex will start taking the cake the more you add to it. But as far as core amp tones, using your pedal board, what do you think of this comparison? Let me know. And if you made it this far in the video, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.